Hi, I'm Don Sundman, and I'm going to tell the story of bidding on the 1-cent Z-Grill stamp, which we bought in 1998 and paid a record price for a U.S. stamp at the time. The night before, they held a reception at the Palace Hotel for potential bidders, and I was invited. I'd been a client of Siegel's, but never had spent big money at auctions, but it was fun to show up. And there was a very wealthy dealer, collector, man who loved stamps that I bumped into at that reception, Arthur Morwitz, and I'd known Arthur for some time, not very well, but I knew he had tons of money, and I was afraid that he might want to buy the 1-cent Z-Grill. He certainly could outbid me. And so I asked him if he had any interest in it, and he said no, that grills were kind of technical and it wasn't his thing. And so I thought, oh my gosh, I wonder if he's being straight with me or if it's just part of his plan to keep it a secret. A lot of people don't like to announce that they want to buy a stamp, and I don't know why. But anyways, it turned out he was absolutely straight, and he didn't bid on the stamp, had no interest, and so that was interesting. The auction was at the St. Regis Hotel, which is a fancy hotel in New York City, and it was on the rooftop, which is like a glassed-in area, kind of like a greenhouse, and it's just gorgeous. And I'd never been there, and it was fun. And went up in the elevator. My son was there, and my good friend Mark Morrow, who was going to help advise us on auctions. He'd been to a lot more auctions than I had been. So before the sale starts, we realized we didn't have a catalog. They had created this wonderful hardbound catalog, and it was really heavy, and so I didn't bring it, and I didn't think about it. And then we get to the sale, and thought, oh, it'd be nice to have a catalog to follow along. And so I went up to ask for one, and they were for sale. It was like $25 or $40. I think it was $40. And it's like, I don't want to pay $40. I have a catalog at home. I thought I didn't really need it. We're just after like 2 stamps. So I decided not to buy the catalog. And then a good friend of mine, Sonny Hagendorf, is a rare stamp dealer, and he buys a lot of stamps at Siegel. And so I'd spoken to Sonny before the sale to ask him what he thought the stamp was worth and what he thought about it. And so he knew I had an interest in it. And so Sonny went up to the woman selling the catalogs and said, I think he's going to buy the stamp. I think you should give him a catalog. And so they did. They gave me this softbound copy, and it was great, so I could follow along. And I'm looking at it now. I can see I wrote down some of the prices and the bidder. There's a block of rare stamps sold for $27,000. Charles Shreve was the bidder. T18, the stamp went for the telephone. Frank Mandel was a auction agent bidding for collectors. So it was fun to follow along. Finally, we got to lot 226, the 1-cent Z-Grill, which was the stamp that we were so excited about. And the bidding started, I think, at $200,000, and the increments were about $10,000, and there were many people that were bidding on it. Some people think it's fun to bid on a stamp even if they have no intention really of buying it. And so there's this whirlwind of bids, like 200, 210, 220, it went up really fast. And then as the price got higher, then the increment gets larger. And so someplace around $400,000 or $500,000, there were fewer people bidding. And that's when we started to bid. And then whoever was bidding, I don't recall, dropped out. And it was just Charles Shreve, who was sitting behind us, and he was the representative for Bill Gross. At the time, Bill Gross, it was a secret who he was. I didn't know that Charles's big customer that was building this fabulous collection was Bill Gross or anything about it. But anyways, we're bidding. And then the bid comes to us, and we bid $850,000. And then Charles dropped out. He didn't bid. So the auctioneer, of course, wants the price to go higher. So he waits a minute and see if anybody else is going to bid. Then he hammered the lot closed, and Charles is in the back, and there's a lot of other people, collectors and some dealers in the back. And I hear this laughter, and I didn't know what it was. Harvey Mursky is a collector of 5-cent 1847s. And so he's there, and he says to Charles, he's just a kid, you can take him. and everybody laughs, and it was just kind of a silly moment for something that is very serious, a lot of money for a new record price for a stamp. Scott Truppel takes a pause with the auction, and there's TV there and a few reporters, and Zach and I go up and we pose for photos, and then Zach's asked a few questions by the TV people, and I think the next morning it might have been on CNN or whatever, but it was really an exciting time, really cool. So they restart the auction, and then the moment of truth, whether we're going to buy the 15-cent stamp, which is lot 235. And I spent much less than my top bid. My top, with the commission, I thought I could pay up to $1.5 million, and I was thinking about buying the 2 stamps. Well, my bid of $850 meant that it would cost me with the commission $935,000, so I still had over $500,000 in my budget that I could spend. But I didn't want to throw the money away, and the stamp was a little controversial. And anyways, I ended up not bidding on it, and so Charles bought it for Mr. Gross, and I have written down that it was $190,000, so that must have been the hammer. So after that, we left, Mark, Morrow, my son Zach, and I, and we went to a nice restaurant not that far that we walked to, and we had a nice dinner. And you know, Zach's only a 6th grader, and it was a pretty exciting day, and it was a late dinner, and so you know, it was after 9 o'clock or something like that, and so he ended up falling asleep at the restaurant, and I don't know if I carried him or had to wake him up or whatever, but it was really, really exciting. So then fast forward a week or so, and the auction is over, and I want to get the stamp. I wanted to have it. And I had arranged terms. It was 30 days to pay for the stamp with the Siegel auction firm. But I'd never spent anywhere near that much money. And, you know, there was risk to that. And so they were a little hesitant about giving me the stamp. And so I said, well, I'll just pay for it then. And so I flew down to New York, and I gave him a check for the $935,000, and I had the stamp. And then I flew back to Syracuse, and it was so fun that I could show the stamp to everybody at work, and it was just the start of a really cool experience. And then we did a lot of fun things, like taking the stamp to APS, American Philatelic Society stamp shows, and I'll tell that in another video. So thank you.